If you look at the gauges, you can see shadowing. I can tell you when it's nighttime, all the shadowy areas at night are basically pitch black. And I'm sure you can hear that whine. And that whine is also from this. So here's the problem. There's not bulbs in there. The whole thing itself is, I can't remember what they call it, but basically the only way is to totally replace it. Well, it's not really feasible for most folks. They do sell faces you can put over, but they don't sell the police face. So you run into problems syncing everything up. I have heard that it's possible to basically heat the stuff up and make it sort of re-adhere, that supposedly it's becoming unstuck, which is why it's doing that. So I'm going to take a gamble, pull it, heat it up, and see, does that improve at all? Do I just make it worse? So wish me luck. This piece just pops off 2 connectors, and you have 2 or 3 Phillips screws. There's one there, there's one down here, and you may have one on that side as well. Mine just has the 2 screws, and this just pops off. Again, it has those little spring connectors, and then there's one electrical there for your trunk pop. And you can see it's got one little press up and it slides out. Not my favorite type, but it is what it is. You see, mine doesn't have a screw there, it just has a clip in there, so just the 1, 2 screws. You don't have to take this piece off, but if you want to, I believe they're 10mm bolts, 3 of them, and then getting that out will give you a lot of clearance if you need to do any other work up in here, run in wires, anything like that. Phillips screw here, pops out. It's just held in with little spring clips. Mine is missing it, but there's another Phillips screw right under the keyhole. And the hardest part of this is wrestling it around the gear shift. One thing you can do is lower your steering wheel. This piece separates here. And you kind of have to fish it back through. I'm sure there's probably a way to totally remove the gear shift lever, and maybe that makes it easier, but just basically feed that through there, and then just kind of wrestle it out. Then you have 3 Phillips screws, 2 on top, 1 on the lower side here. And this piece will drop down, because if you don't, this piece blocks this from coming out. I'm not really sure why they did that. And you probably need a little screwdriver. And with the 3rd screw out, this will come towards you and then drop down. It gives you maybe a 1/2 inch to 1 inch of extra clearance, but it's just what you need to be able to tilt this out of here. Cluster itself has 4 Phillips screws, 2 on the bottom, 2 on the top. You may try tools like this. You may be able to get to it with longer screwdriver, power tools, etc. They do tend to fall. Thankfully, they typically do fall through. So with the screws out, you just, like I said, kind of tilt it and pull it back this way. One spring clamp stuck in there. that. Now the hard part is disconnecting the electrical. Mine actually has 3 connectors. They appear to be press and release. However, I will tell you, they don't just press and release. You need like a plastic tool or something to kind of free them. I'm sure their thinking is they don't want these coming disconnected while you're driving, because with the cluster out, nothing seems to work, door locks or anything like that. However, my counter to them would be, if they are difficult to remove and release, then they are easy to break. And when they break is when they don't lock in. If you press and release nice and easy, they come out easy, they go back in easy, you're not likely to break them. But again, engineers don't ever ask me, and they wouldn't want to hear what I have to say about them. There we go. It's out. Seriously. 3 connectors, and it takes 30 minutes to get them undone. It's just no excuse. Disassembly of this is real easy. You've got these little torque screws, which, you know me, I hate torque screws. Stupidest design ever. I want to say they're T15s. There's 6 that will take the white and clear plastic off, and then there's 6 that will take this backing off if you want to. 6 T15s, and with those out, this piece comes off and it gives you access to this. So these 3 are working. This one currently not working. I need to figure out what I did. Take the needles off. I suggest you bottom them and keep them against the bottom, and then have a plastic tool like this that will slide under them. And they'll just pop off like that. And this stuff's a pain in the butt. You see, I had to basically melt it to get it over this. I don't know what the trick is. There doesn't seem to be a trick to just getting to it, but hopefully I didn't ruin the stepper motor when I took that off before. But like I said, the others are working fine. It's just this one. So we'll see if there's anything real obvious there. And if you need access to the back, like I said, there's 6 T15 torque screws. These are really the only applications where you can even justify the possibility of using torques, and that's where you have clear access to them so that you can make sure you have the right size and that the heads are clean and not stripping. But when they stick them in places where you have to blindly access them, possibly using extensions and swivels and so forth, there's no business putting them there, because they're just guaranteed to strip out, even though I know they claim that their big thing is that they don't quote unquote cam out, i.e. strip out, but that is bull. They strip out easier than any other type of screw I've ever seen. Okay, so this is the stepper that is not working. So I'll have to see if there's anything obvious that I did. I am not Jeff, I don't know, Cordelex or however he pronounces his channel. I don't have those kind of skills. So I can't look at this and go, oh yeah, this little chip here is bad, or, you know, if it's something real obvious, like, oh, I've melted, you know, one of the, I think he calls them traces, and, you know, I can put a multimeter on there and see there's not continuity or something. Okay, I can I can do that much, but like I can't just look at these little individual chips and go, oh, this one's bad because blah blah blah, you know. Like he could probably look at this and even through this video and go, oh, this one's bad, this one's good. Not me. But I was also going to see, this one's coming up a bit again. I was going to heat it up and let you see what that looks like. The hot air going. We got it set at 260 Celsius. I mean, it needs to get pretty hot to stick it down, but what I was doing before was basically, because of the heat, will unstick. You have to keep a lot of pressure on it, as you may stick down something that was unstuck before, but you may unstick something else in the process. I don't want to do too much because, like I said, I had it about 95% just from using heat. It's just something similar to what I just did. And it seems to stick it back down. And when it's, this clear layer is stuck to the white layer is when it seems to light up. All right, really good news. Everywhere I've stuck back down is lighting up. However, I don't have all of it stuck down. So, all right, I have it lighting up about 95% maybe. And I wanted to show you, since I took this all apart, there's the power connector for the lights. It's just a press and release, and shockingly, it actually does press and release. To get this off of the back of here was actually very easy. There's the 4 torx T15 screws there, and then it just lifted off, like I said, other than disconnecting the light power there. If you don't, you'll break that, and then you'll be in the world of hurt. So here's why I have taken this all apart. These I thought would just kind of snap back down, and like this one I did get it, but these are fighting me now. Right now they're sort of 50% snap down maybe. I've been working them with this, but they're not truly underneath like they should be. So there's a bit of a distortion on them because it's pulling on them. So these center pieces, I was afraid were part of the stepper motors, but they're not. They're actually part of this. So here's what I don't know, and it's not real clear. They almost look like you can pop them out, then lay everything down on here, and then squeeze those in. That's what it looks like should happen here. But I'm not getting them to budge. I've tried pressing on them, through the back with things like this, and trying to see if they maybe unscrew. Not getting a lot of luck there. The one thing I did learn, at least for me, did not work, was using an iron. I've heard other people say use like a clothes iron. The problem with the clothes iron is because it's such a large surface, one, it's difficult to get right where you need it to be, but number two, since it heats up such a large surface, as it heats, it unadheres. So you actually end up making it worse with the iron, I felt like, than I did using hot air on small spots and pressing it out with the plastic so it could cool and adhere. To each his own. All right, I could not figure out, so I ended up melting them basically, squeezing them, pushing this down, and then melting them back. And to melt them back, I put a screwdriver and kind of turn to try to push it. You see I melted this a little too long there, so 240 Celsius is too much for this face plate. Stick to probably 200 or less, and you shouldn't have any problems. But anyway, so it's sort of kind of back on. Like I said, there's got to be a trick to it other than what I had to do, but I could not get those center pieces to pop out at all, no matter how much pressure I put on them. All right, make sure you get your reset button in there. This just lays in there. Make sure your cord is out where you can get to it. And like I said, there's just the 4 screws in here. This goes on the back. And there are 6 torx screws that hold it. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay, I took photos, and I'm glad I did, because these gauges do not seem to have a like, there's not only one way you can put them on. It looks like you can basically put it on there or wherever you want it. So but one thing I would suggest when you're putting them on, twist them the direction that you started with. For example, I bottomed all of mine out because the center pieces do have a bottom and top point. So I'm going to turn them toward the bottom as I'm putting them on. That way, in case any of these spun, they will be correctly oriented. And so the fuel for the bottom is going to be just barely below the E there. So I'm going to start it halfway and start to press and turn. Now I should have this covered as fits over. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, basically the corners in the middle. The hardest part I ever find is plugging in the wire connectors. I don't know why they seem to be difficult to get them lined up. Putting this back in, you're going to go under here, so you can kind of push up on there if you need to. Slide in just like that, and then there's 4 screws in the corners. Alright, this was a lot of work, but it's hard to tell that they're lit up because it's sort of bright in here, but they're basically 95-ish%, and there's very little whine compared to what there used to be. This was the more important thing. So when I had put this back, this was not working. So there's 20, 40, 60, 80, and 100. And back to 0. These have all been working, but just to show you, there's 0, 20, 40, 60, 80. I'm having trouble hitting 80 and holding the camera, sorry. And 100. Speedometer. This is percentage: 20, 40, 60, 80, and 100%. Tack 20%, 40, 60, 80, and 100. So I think they are all lined up, the needles where they need to be. The tack may be, what we call that, 1/16 of an inch too low. I'm not worried about that. That's the biggie right there, speedometer. Because that being off could be the difference between a ticket and not a ticket. Everything else on here is working just like you'd expect it to. There we go. All indicators on. So I didn't screw anything up permanently. I did screw up cosmetically. I don't even know if it's showing up on camera, but right next to the needle there, between the needle and the H, I kind of burnt it. But overall, compared to what I had before, where you couldn't even, that was completely dark, and that was completely dark at night, I'm happy. So I'm gonna leave this. I'm not gonna screw with it anymore. Basically a free repair other than my time. Hope it helps some of you. Alright, that should give you an idea of how well they're working now. Couple dark spots, like I said, maybe 95%, maybe only 90% working, but I'll take it compared to what it was. And that's with the lights off. So yeah, they are working. Again, hope that was helpful. Appreciate a thumbs up, subscribe, tell your friends please. Thank you. Back in, 4 screws in the cluster, 3 in the little steering wheel adjuster, and then getting this piece in again is kind of a wrestling match. It needs to wrestle over the gear shift and then pop the little boot through that gap. Three press tabs across the top, and then should be 2 screws. However, mine only has 1 because one is broke off over here, although it doesn't seem to matter. And then this piece just snaps in. So you got the one there, and this piece has the little push tabs plus a screw there and a screw there. And don't forget to reconnect your trunk pop. Put the screws in, but you get the idea. You know how to put screws in, hopefully. Make sure when you put this piece in that you get it behind here or it won't line up. And then this piece, again, just clicks into place. And you're done.